Okay guys, so being a realtor, I've been getting asked recently all the time, is there going to be a housing market crash? Especially out here in Vegas, because Vegas was so much affected by what happened back in 2007, 2008. I do get asked that all the time. Is there going to be a housing crash? Is there going to be a wave of foreclosures and short sales? And the short answer to that is no. And here are the major reasons why. There's three major reasons that this time is not the same as back in 2008. And that first major reason is lending standards. So back in 2005, 6, 7, everything leading up to that time, there was very loose lending standards. And that means that anyone could get a loan just by saying, hey, my income is this, give me a home loan. And so a lot of people who maybe weren't the strongest buyers, maybe didn't have the strongest income and assets, were still able to qualify for those loans. So then when everything tanked, people lost their jobs, of course those people were in a lot of trouble, and that was a very big component of what happened. This time around, ever since 2008, lending standards have become very strict. And especially during the pandemic, lending standards have become even more strict. So due to the more strict lending standards, it's not likely that buyers are going to be in that same position where, oh, I bought this home and now I lost my job. I don't actually have the money to make this monthly payment. The lending standards have been much more strict and underwriting standards have been much more strict. So that is way less likely this time around. The second reason that it is different this time is also supply. Back then, before that crash happened, before 2007, 2008, builders were building homes like crazy. There was a lot of supply, a lot of homes. And so when everything tanked, when everything went bad with the economy, of course, there was a lot of vacant homes left sitting around that couldn't be sold. And so of course that drove down the price and caused that crash and that huge dip even more because there was such a huge supply of properties that of course demand wasn't there, and that makes prices go lower. However, this time around, actually ever since 2008, builders have been really cautious. And so we're actually now in the opposite problem where there's not enough supply. So because builders were so cautious in the last 10 to 12 years and not building up that supply again, there's actually a very short supply of homes to go around. And that's true in many places across the country, but especially here in Vegas, where builders really didn't ramp back up even when the economy started to ramp back up. And so now they're just now trying to catch up to that huge demand that's come around because millennials are coming into that home buying age, and they're the biggest generation, and they're starting to come into that process of home buying their first home right now. And so that's the second reason, that supply and demand, that it's not the same. There's a much tighter supply, and that's going to keep demand going forward. Even if demand for buyers goes down a little bit, there's just still not enough homes on the market, not enough homes being built to keep up with that new generation of millennials getting into home buying. And the very last reason that this is not the same as back in 2008 is because this time around, buyers have a lot more equity in their homes. And so back in 2008, when people, were buying homes cheap, then everything fell. Of course, that wasn't great. This time, because home prices have been steadily accelerating for that last 10 years during that whole last decade of recovery, right now people have a lot of equity in their home. And so that is really the most important when looking at, is there going to be a wave of foreclosures and short sales? Even though there was a moratorium on the foreclosures, even with that moratorium ending, that doesn't mean that there suddenly is going to be a bunch of foreclosures, a bunch of short sales on the market, because this time around people have equity. So let's say that you got behind on your mortgage. Let's say that you're in your home for a while, but now you're like, oh no, I lost my job, the pandemic, I can't pay the mortgage. Even if you are forced to sell to get rid of your home in that situation, it's not going to be a foreclosure or a short sale because your home is worth more money now, because it has been building equity, and because home prices have been steadily increasing over the last decade. People have that equity to fall back on. So if someone who is in financial trouble needs to sell their home at this point, it's not going to be a foreclosure or short sale because they're not upside down in their loan. They have equity in their home. They might have to sell quickly. It might add to the supply of homes on the market, which is low. And so any addition to that supply is great for buyers. But it's not going to be foreclosures and short sales because people have that equity. They're not upside down. They don't have to sell their home back to the bank. They actually can just go ahead on the market and sell it. So even if they have to sell the home quickly, it's going to sell for more than their mortgage remaining balance is, because home prices have been appreciating for a while. So those are the three main reasons that no, we're not going to see a market crash. We're not going to see a wave of foreclosures and short sales. However, we are hoping that we will see a evening out of the huge rise in home prices. That doesn't mean things are going to drop. That doesn't mean anything's going to crash. It just means that prices are going to level out a bit and maybe still increasing, but not increasing as quickly, as rapidly as we have seen over this last year. And so hopefully that was helpful. If you are looking to buy a home, this is absolutely a great time because interest rates are still really low and rates are definitely not going to stay that low forever. So taking advantage of the low interest rates right now could be worth it, even if there is competition for homes. It's worth it to take advantage of those low interest rates and try to get into something now because there's not going to be a crash, first of all. And also that demand from buyers isn't really going to go anywhere just because, again, like I mentioned, millennials, our generation is coming into that home buying age. And there's a lot of us. So the millennials are definitely going to be buying homes and there's going to be a steady demand for home buying over the next possibly even 5 to 10 years. But hopefully prices will even out a bit. They will keep rising, but just at a more steady rate. So not as quickly, not as crazy as we've been seeing. And what is good with supply for homes, at least here in Vegas, we have been seeing a steady uptick of supply. So sellers are becoming a little bit more comfortable with the pandemic slightly dying down, more comfortable placing their homes on the market. And about what we've seen here in Vegas is maybe about 100 to 120 homes more of inventory every week. So like a couple weeks ago, the inventory for single family homes around Vegas was only like 3,000, which is still low, but a little bit climbing up there, getting a little bit better. And then a week later, it was about 3,100, 3,120. So maybe 100 more, 120 more homes available on the market week by week. So this is a great time to buy or sell, actually. If you have any questions about any of that or the buying or selling process, give me a call. My information will be under the video. Okay, hope that was helpful. Bye.